Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Race Day Live at the second annual Lone Star Sprint Car Nationals at Kilgore's Lone Star Speedway. Sitting with me is event promoter Darren Short. And Darren, a lot of changes have gone on with this track from where we were last year when you ran this race to this year. Kind of highlight some of the changes you guys have made to this racetrack.
Well, Brian, first off, welcome to Lone Star Speedway. And as you know, everybody knows, the track was, basically abandoned for several years until Sam and Lisa Haferty took it over about 3.5 years ago. And it was kind of one of those places that looked like where old spiders had gone to die. It really was in a state of disrepair. So of the laundry list of 100 different things that needed to be done, many of them continue to be done. Since you were here last year, the pit area has been expanded. It's about another acre or acre and a half larger.
That was one of the first things I noticed when I pulled into the track, was that you guys had expanded that outer wall and, like I said, added about an acre and a half for these guys to park, and it's going to be real beneficial, especially with the amount of smaller rigs we have, to have that area to go into, and it gives these larger rigs, especially for these guys that are coming in that race for a living, it gives them enough room to park and work on their cars.
Exactly, and it offers more of a staging area as well, so there's a little bit of a safety factor involved there, which is going to be helpful. Also, corner 1 and 2, with the track being reconfigured a year and a half ago, now has 3 rows of Armco barrier that have been installed into the fence, thus providing yet another level of safety.
And that was one thing last year that I know you had a problem with, was with that fence, where we did have a driver flip into the fence and actually managed to break one of the supporting poles.
Right.
So now this year, with having that whole row tied together, it adds that much more safety and also prevents a driver from going through, because it's a very long drop if they clear that fence.
Oh, yeah, definitely. There's probably about a 25-foot drop because the track is banked very high here.
Well, that, and because it was a half mile originally, if you look at the track, you can still see where the original track was, where the top of this track was. So, they basically dug that whole turns 1 and 2 out to make where turns 1 and 2 is now for this very high bank 3/8 mile.
Right. And that's the one thing race fans are going to find if they have not been to the Lone Star Sprint Nationals before, that this is an ultra racy joint now that we've reconfigured the track.
And that's one thing. Last year we came into the first night, and unfortunately we did have a rut in 1 and 2. We had a major rut over in 3 and 4, and Sam Sr., Sam Jr., they came together and they got this thing where it was smooth, top to bottom, for the final 2 nights, and it was just slide jobs at every corner, so it really made a difference in how the show was. And looking at the track this year, and one thing that I noticed when I pulled in is these walls are not as tall as they were last year.
Well, and that's the next thing, is there's been about 30 or so loads of fresh clay that's been incorporated into the track here in the last month, and it's a totally different racing surface than last year. Last year was great, but this new soil has been incorporated with a subsoil mixer, one of those maintaining units that's just kind of redistributed the new dirt with the old clay, and it maintains moisture a lot better than the existing soil or the existing clay, which has been here since 1985.
Yeah, and that's one thing I was going to ask is, how much have you guys added? Would you answer that with 30 loads? That equates to about 600 yards of material that you guys have added to this track. And one thing I talked with Sam Haferty Sr. last night, and when he purchased this material, he was very picky about it. He went and he actually drove to the site, and they dug up what they were wanting to sell them, and it was clay. It was not sand. It was not caliche. It was clay. So he said, yeah, bring it on. He was very pleased with what they brought out to the track, and you guys have already run shows on the surface,
right,
and all reports from you is that it has been great so far.
Yeah, it was, it was really, really, really good on Sunday afternoon, and an afternoon show is a pretty good acid test, that if you can run 100 cars through in an afternoon and not have to rework the track, or there was no dust at all on Sunday afternoon. So that's kind of the real bottom line.
It was not an overcast day either.
Well, it was cloudy, but nonetheless it was at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So there's still a certain amount of sunlight that comes through.
And there's a certain amount of pan evaporation that's going to happen anyway because of the
Right.
heat, because of the amount of UV rays that get through the cloud anyway.
Exactly.
So the fact that you guys didn't have to rework that track is great news, especially coming into what would be your biggest sprint car race of the year here at the Lone
Exactly.
Star Speedway.
Well, and that kind of leads me to a question for you, Brian, which is, this year at the Lone Star Sprint Nationals, this is really adding a whole nother level of uncertainty as to who's going to do what, because this is a brand new racing surface. Even Gary Wright hasn't raced on it.
Yeah.
So, coming into this year, who's your pick? Who do you think's going to be able to quickly adapt to this new surface? And based on you going to all the different races this year, who do you think this is going to be best suited to?
It's hard to say, especially with the quality of drivers that we have that race with the American Sprint Car Series, not just our regions, but also with the Lucas Oil American Sprint Car Series presented by MAV TV. And you'll see those drivers here this weekend. And, you have to go probably with people like Shane Stewart. He won this race last year. Him and Jason Johnson put on a fantastic show. It was a slide job fest in almost every other corner, in lap traffic. But a couple of drivers that I'm going to keep my eye on this year, Johnny Herrera, who won one of the qualifying nights here last year, is very good on these high bank tracks. We saw that earlier this season at the Salina High Banks in Oklahoma, where he was absolutely dominating, blew a motor at the white flag and still came around and got third. That's how much of a lead he had on everybody. So he's very good on these big racetracks. And also Wayne Johnson, who's currently second in National Tour standings. This is his kind of track where it's very fast, very on the gas, and very on the wheel. And he's another driver. He's not afraid to get up on the wall. Last year, he proved that. Unfortunately, crashed out on his qualifying night and couldn't finish the weekend. But this is one of those tracks where I think Wayne is going to be able to shine, and also because of the history he has with this track. The very first ASCS National Tour event ever held at this facility in 1993, Wayne Johnson was the winner.
Awesome. Again, this is your first race. You were really coming on the national scene as far as being involved with it. Towards, what was it, the middle or the end of last year?
I actually, the first time I ever got exposed to ASCS was in 2010. They came to my home track in southern New Mexico in Las Cruces and met Scott Traylor with Racing Boys. Scotty Cook was with him at the time, and met Donna Hahn Harris, the VP of ASCS, and just really, really wonderful people to work with. And in 2011, I started doing contract work. I went out to California and did a couple of broadcasts for RacingBoys.com, and ended up doing the Copper on Dirt. And actually, this next weekend when we go to Devil's Bowl marks 1 year since I was hired by ASCS. So it's really been neat to come out and do this. And last year I came and did this broadcast for Scott Traylor with Racing Boys, and had an absolute blast getting to come out and watch this race and be a part of this race, and really looking forward this year to working a lot closer with Lone Star Speedway, with you, with Sam and everybody, and making this event bigger and bigger every year for these drivers, for ASCS, and just for racing in general.
Well, and this is as good as time as any to let all the fans out there know that Bill Wright is not going to be able to make it down this weekend. He had a personal situation that's developed that he just hasn't been able to get to a lot of races this summer like he'd like to. And, he'll be back at this race next year. But for all you race fans out there that'll be here live or listening on Racing Boys, they're going to get to hear you all weekend.
They'll have me, and I believe Bill Kitchen is
Yes.
going to be covering the 305s.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to have Hook himself in the house. If any of you have ever seen the Hook Report online, he does a lot of reporting, especially for the Gulf South area. Always helped me out whenever I did big modified shows with Royal Jones and Las Cruces. So really look forward to working with him. But all kinds of different places, if you can't be here live, that you can get information for this race this weekend. You can go to Darren Short's website, Darren Short. Let's see, what is it? DarrenShort.com?
Yeah, just DARINSHORT.com. And on the upper right of the home page, you can get a link to the event website, which has all the latest updates. As a matter of fact, that's where you're watching this broadcast from, or through the ASCS different websites. Where are you going to be posting?
I will be posting lineups and finishes as I do at every national tour event on ASCSRacing.com. I'll post the story. It'll be the first one on the website, so it'll be easy to find. There'll be a link inside there that'll take you right to our results page, and you'll be able to see the lineups and results throughout the night as long as the internet connection stays good, which fortunately this year Darren has provided us with Ethernet and wireless internet up here in the tower. And, he rolls his eyes, but we thank him for that because it's a lot easier than using data cards. And also with that, we're also going to be tweeting through the ASCS Twitter page on Twitter at Lucas Oil ASCS. Again, that's at Lucas Oil ASCS. It will also go to the Lucas Oil American Sprint Car Series Facebook page. And of course, you can listen in all 3 nights to RacinBoys.com. Scott Traylor will be anchoring the broadcast, and me and Bill Kitchen will be providing the call on that. So night number 1 here at the Lone Star Speedway, just about ready to get underway. If you're close, we encourage you to make the drive. It's going to be a great show. Over 100 drivers have registered for this event, not only for the 360s and 305s this weekend. Of course, night number 1 brought to you by Smiley's Racing Products. Smiley's Racing Products out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, a big supporter in all racing, whether it's sprint cars, late models, modifieds. Smiley's Racing Products, provider of night number 1 here at the Lone Star Sprint Car Nationals.